I want to talk about something real quick. Now, this guy here, I've talked about him before on the channel, right? I've discussed him before on the channel, and it's always been about economic problems. And he's like, hey, I need to. It's a charity. Is really how he's treating his business, where it's like, I can't afford the storage. And I get it. People go through shit, but it's a reoccurring thing with this guy. And he's like, I need to, please buy my book. And there's like these weird, he calls them like queer comic stuff. And as you see, he's bragging about being a GLAAD Award nominee. And it doesn't seem to do him any well. And we're going to look at what he had to say, but I just want to give context there. I have talked about this guy before. Ironically enough, there was some other idiot, I'm not going to say his name, that is not fond of me. Obviously, big fat guy who might be into children doing things that they shouldn't be in. You guys maybe know who I'm referring to. But it's funny, when I first talked about this guy, he was so much about, oh, look at this crowdfund. It made this amount of money. You're lying about, him being broke and all that stuff. Okay, interesting. So this is what this guy says as we'll read along together. I said, okay, I've gone back and forth on whether to tweet this, but I honestly don't know what to do. I need help. It says, my business for my independent comics has dived off a cliff. It says, and nothing seems to work to bring it back. I want to make new things.
Wait. Before we do this, can I show you a 2-minute video that I made about this guy?
Yeah,
it'll add context to this. So let me share a video.
Oh, look.
Comic Artist Pro Secrets, everyone. I made a series of short videos called Comic Pros Are Going Nuts. And this one right here, if you share the screen, just let me know when it's ready. All right, there you go.
That's good. That's good.
That's how these people are, dude.
Yeah, like they're delusional, man. They're for sure delusional. Let me pull this back up real quick for you guys here in a bit. But yeah, they are completely delusional. And look, a lot of these comic pros are broke in general, chasing commissions. I don't know if I consider that guy a comic pro, but think about that, right? He's talking all this shit. And this guy is always in a poor, every time I've covered him on his channel, it's because he's in a poor economic situation. So all of this shit about, signaling certainly to this demographic, which I've told y'all does not have, they don't got money like that, because it's a very neat, his genre of what comics he creates is like a niche of a niche. You know what I mean? He's like doing this like all his gay comics and stuff like that. And they don't seem to be supporting him to the degree that he needs. He says, I'm posting it now because I just had a full-blown panic attack and breakdown at my day job, and I'm not in a good place. So we got some emotional issues there. Says
another one.
It feels like, yeah, exactly. It feels like my business is over, and as a result, my ability to keep going as a creator. How can I make new things when I can't see where the next paycheck is coming in? He continues on. He says, on top of that, and you guys, I know you barely can see it, but this is a screenshot I have. Says, on top of that, says, my day job isn't keeping everything covered with me, having to constantly dip into my personal funds to cover business expenses. So I'm struggling to stay afloat here, and it doesn't matter what I try. Nothing seems to work, he says. I'm scared. I need help. I don't know how else to ask for it beyond what I've tried, which is all the time. This guy, every time I see him appearing on my timeline, he is like essentially begging you guys to support him because he's in financial distress. It says, I know it's a cost of living crisis. I know times are tough, but I still have a business to run to keep me and my art going. And I just don't know what to do anymore. And I hate putting this on social media. I try to show a strong face, which I guess when he was going after Ethan, that was a strong face. He says, I try not to let it all get to me when I know everyone is having a hard time right now, but I don't know what to do. Well, I'm going to offer you a bit of free advice, Joe. Nobody's interested in that shit that you're buying and
that you're making.
That you're making. And that's a harsh reality that every businessman has to have something that humbles them, right? And not everything's always gonna work. Not everything's gonna be a hit, and you have to know when to pivot. That's just basic. That's business 101. You have to understand when to pivot. You don't keep banging your head into a wall. What you're finding out is that a lot of these people that retweet, right? You got nominated for a GLAAD award, right? And you're pissy broke. That should tell you that in itself, that these accolades and shit that I think a lot of you guys chase does not equal economic success. It does not equal people that are buying your material. It is not a sustainable business practice. So you have to be able to approach your business like it is one, instead of a charity, instead of something that, I just like to do it. You have to approach it as an actual businessman. And that would require you, definitely because you're in the independent scene. And I know you hate us a lot, but there's a lot of tips and tricks of the trade that you can kind of pick up from looking at folks like ourselves who have seen a level of success that you're probably not going to reach, but it doesn't mean that you can't see any sort of success. Do you think, Ethan, that this guy will be humble enough to reach out to us? Well,
he should.
He should.
I think Joe, if you're listening right now over there in England, just apologize. Just write me a humble apology. Say, Ethan, you were right all along. Praise Comicsgate. Hail Comicsgate. Write a little letter to Eric July and just say, I was wrong. This is terrible. My comics are awful. And insulting Comicsgate and all of the fans probably didn't work out for the best. Writing a ton of tweets saying that comic books are not a customer service industry, you idiots, and all the things that you were saying. Boy, that must taste like ashes in your mouth right now. I completely understand. Here's what I would recommend for Joe. And, listen, I understand you're gay. It's the entirety of your personality,
Joe.
Identity,
man.
Yeah, it's who you are. You are gay, not a lot else. Understand, making if you want to make a living in comics and you want to do comics about gay, why don't you do comics for everyone? Why don't you do comics aimed at the largest demographic of comic book readers, which is straight men? And then slip about 3% of gay in there. 3% of gay. What would 3% of gay be in a comic book? I don't know. I'm not sure. Some guy can wear pink Bermuda shorts.
Ironically, GLAAD, who he's talked about, shows that there's like a big overrepresentation. I looked at one of their reports. It's like,
it's ridiculous.
On CW, it's like 15% of the fucking main characters, like not even joking, are of the alphabet.
This generation coming up right now thinks that like 80% of the population is homosexual because of this, and I don't blame them. So I would just say, probably use gay as a subversive element within your mainstream work, okay? And then that way you'll probably have a little bit more success. And that is entirely sincere advice. Yeah, that's advice that I would give to a comic skater who was gay and wanted to do a book with a little bit of gay in it. I would say about 3%. About half of a panel in an entire comic book could be gay. And then the rest of it should be heterosexual. Thank you. That's my advice. And good luck to you.
Got your free advice. You didn't even have to pay for it, Joe. I mean, you wouldn't have the money, but certainly on a serious note, you guys that are watching this, not just Joe, but everybody in the audience, I think there's certainly some it should be a learning experience for everybody. It really just, again, validates a lot of what it is that we talk about these guys. First of all, it's very rare, nonetheless, that anybody, even a former comic pro, crosses into not having to write characters that already exist and seeing success. Like, that's a rarity in itself, by itself. I mean, we've seen some people actually attempt to do that and do their own stuff, and it falls on its face. You know what I mean? Like, it's not an easy thing to come up with your own characters, come up with your own creations. That is a very difficult thing in general. But if you are going to do it, because there's certainly a market for it, if you are going to do it, you got to be smart. And maybe the people that you hate so much, maybe they got something figured out. You know, maybe they just have figured it out how to actually market their material, how to actually see success to any degree. He's holding one up right there.
0% gay. Despite what Alex Jones speculated, 0% gay.
0% gay.
Heterosexual frog right here. Cyberfrog 2.
But you have to be smart with your approach, man. And I think that because you guys don't understand demographics at all, you don't understand the harsh realities of any industry that you're in, which is, again, you have to understand no matter what it is, even if you don't like it, you have to understand what the demographic is. You can't just make it up. You can't just say, like the strange women that Ethan was talking about. You can't just sit up there and be like, well, this is now a female's hobby, and therefore I'm just going to sell books. But that's not how it works, because the audience is largely going to reject it because it's already there. It's baked in. It's there. It does not mean that there aren't some women that may like comics. That doesn't mean that there aren't some gay people that may like comics. It's that you probably
tons of them do, but they like them the way they are.
Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth, and that they obviously have liked it the way that it already was. You know what I mean? So you don't need to try to reinvent the wheel for the sake of signaling to this audience. They already clearly were enjoying, at least the ones that are genuine, right? Of course, there's going to be those that are bad actors that are going to be like, well, we need more gay, we need more this, we need more that. Those people aren't actually genuine. They're just looking at it like, we need these characters, definitely when it comes to mainstream stuff, to validate themselves, right? And that's it's funny that they call us narcissists, when I'd argue that that's exactly what narcissism is, when you consider that they feel like they have to live through. It's like T. Franklin, who we both talked about before. Not a fan of me. She's not. Understand totally. Actually, she
can't win them all.
Yeah, yeah. So, but her biggest thing is like, hey, look at this. It's a three-way kiss between all these gay characters, and this has to be the first one in comics. And I was like, what the fuck are you like? What are you talking about? Like, why nobody's interested in that? Or the fact that because, well, you're gay and disabled or whatever, now you have to write in this character that Vixen's hitting on, right, for some reason, because now she's gay, on that is also disabled as well. Hell, the person that the what is that, Sun Spider? I can't remember that spider, the Spider Woman that is disabled. She's the one writing it, right? It's all self-insert shit, you know what I mean? And that's where the narcissism is, right? It's that you're taking brands that already exist, and then you maybe palette swap, you maybe swap the gender, you maybe swap the sexuality or something, and then you present it to the audience and you say, hey, look at my shiny new thing, when all it is just you projecting yourself into some shit that was all long established before either of us, hell, with Spider-Man, were even alive. You know what I mean? And it requires a certain level of narcissism to do something like that. So I would make the argument that they're far more narcissistic than I am. I don't know how you feel about that either.
I think it's the idea of doing superheroes who are disabled is really strange. I used to say this to DC back in the day. I'd say, why is Barbara Gordon still in the wheelchair? Like, why? They'd say, well, we're representing. No. First of all, Zatanna would just have to say fixed spine backwards and she'd be up out of the wheelchair. She's got so many friends, doctors, like super doctors who could heal her spine. There's no reason that she's in the wheelchair except for representation. The other thing is, people who are in wheelchairs, I don't think they want to read about other people being in wheelchairs. I think they want to read about, they want to escape their wheelchair. They want to escape. I mean, it's such a weird thing to have like a super powered wheel. I always think about these Make-A-Wish kids that are in bed all the time. I guess the next thing is going to be a superhero Make-A-Wish kid with a rocket powered, hospice bed with missiles on it or some shit. Like, they want to be up out of there. They want to be flying around with Superman, web swinging with Spider-Man. They want to imagine, escape the dire circumstances of their own lives. And we all do. We all have our own trials, our own tribulations that we want to escape for a little while. This whole thing is so very, very misguided. It is incredibly sad. I'm trying to think of a better word. It's dark. It's sad to want to do things like this, and it goes against what comic books and power fantasies are supposed to be all about. Thank you.
Yeah, and
that's my speech. I always close the speech with thank you.
Yeah. But no, like, it's not even like they're doing it in a creative way. You know what I'm saying? If you look at like something like like at least with Daredevil, where you have like a blind character, right? And then his senses are heightened and stuff like that because of that, and there's other creative ways as opposed to, hey, I'm disabled, this character needs to be disabled because I want to tie it to something that already exists that has long been established. It's like that's certainly not necessary. But what you're speaking to is kind of the aspirational aspect of comics, right? Which I do think is certainly important from a storytelling way. It's not about them necessarily representing everything it is that is you. It's like, no, these are supposed to be people. If I am going to dub them as a hero, right? Yes, they can have their problems and all that stuff, but ultimately, in order to make them relatable, but ultimately, like, these are people that are supposed to be like the best at what it is that they are doing. So they represent some form of something that you're not, right? Like, obviously they're superheroes, right? None of us have superpowers, right? They have levels that should be, and then like the great Supermans of the world that were aspirational. They had problems, but that's not to say they were perfect or Mary Sue's or anything, but it's like they had bits about them that are like, you can aspire to be. So when a young person would read something like that, it's not simply about what they can do in the sense of like physically or with their powers or something like that. But these are supposed to be people that that have something to aspire to be. And you don't even get that. You don't get that picked up really with anything it is that they're putting out right now, where they're boring, mundane sort of characters. They're either perfect all around. They try to make them perfect all around, or it's like some odd fantasy that is written by, let's say, the actual writer, let's say, of the story, and it doesn't have to make sense. For me, I feel like it's a goddamn free-for-all over there at DC and Marvel, especially right now. I don't know kind of how their corporate structure, let's say, is now, like, as far as how much of Disney is overseeing what's going on in Marvel right now. I don't have an answer certainly to that, but it does feel like a free-for-all in the sense that, well, they're not making material that is aspirational, doesn't follow any sort of established kind of concepts, universal truths. It doesn't follow any of that shit anymore that made comics great. Now it's just again, maybe some fantasies by way of the actual writers. Continuity be damned, nothing matters any fucking more. There's a million different versions of the same goddamn character. Nothing matters anymore. And I think that the independent scene allows us to correct course, because I've conceded that I don't think these guys are gonna. Well, let me say this: if they were, Marvel or DC, to me, were to correct course, it'll be because guys like ourselves forced their hand. And what I mean by that is that the money became undeniable. The enthusiasm became undeniable, to the point to where they're like, look, we're broke as fuck, and we got to change course. That I'm not saying that's gonna happen. I wouldn't put that on my number one list of things that are going, that's gonna be the trajectory. They're gonna change. That's not what it is that I'm saying. I'm saying at minimum it's gonna come from some sort of their hand being forced by way of independent people that are not connected to them. And the beautiful thing about this, and you probably know this, obviously, in how you're running your business, is how much of an advantage you have. I mean, let's go back to that, actually, where we talked about retailers and just updating your economic model. Wherever you're viewing the content, I appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, you may be interested in my comic book company, Rippaverse Comics. Our first book and campaign, ISOM #1, brought in $3.7 million with tens of thousands of satisfied customers. Visit Rippaverse.com to check out our store and stay up to date with the latest campaigns from one of the hottest new comic book companies. Also, my first big step towards a parallel economy was the development of my personal website, ericdjuly.com. This entirely replaced my Patreon. Now, if you enjoy this content, please consider becoming a member over at the website. We have an ever-expanding list of perks for various membership tiers, a forum, and a phone app. Some of these perks will even benefit you if you're fans of the Rippaverse. Anyway, I appreciate you so much for being a supporter and or customer. I even got a little love for my haters.